Hi, Nithya. Thank you so much for agreeing to join us for this session today. It's good to be with you.
Lovely to be here, Mika. Thank you for inviting me.
Um, like I described to you, Nithya, the title of the session is a title which is very important to a lot of us, and it's very special. And I couldn't think of a better person to invite to address this topic than you. And the title is Recovering from Heartbreak, a Spiritual Perspective. To a lot of people, this might be a topic which is slightly ambiguous because, hey, heartbreak and then spiritual. But I think that for those of us who have experienced heartbreak in any format, we understand that it has taken us spiritual tools and means and methods to truly move beyond it. Nithya, thank you for being someone who's done so much research on spirituality, first of all, and embraced it and embodied it. What do you think heartbreak really is? What's your perspective on heartbreak in general?
Yeah, somehow I'm not that fond of the word because I feel sometimes words also condition us. So even though it's fine to use the word in the context of this podcast, uh, there is a certain power within words. So when we say heartbreak, it sounds, as we all know, breaks looks like something very irreversible. You break a cup and now it's gone, you know. And unless you're in Japan, you do that. What's it called? Kitusuri or something like that?
Kintsugi, kintsugi.
Kintsugi, kintsugi,
Yes.
where you now make it more beautiful. But I think it's not always the best analogy to say it breaks because, as we know, the heart is a muscle and muscles don't break unless, I mean, they can break, but in very extreme situations. The muscle squeeze. So
Yeah.
it's a hard squeeze. And I would prefer to use it something from nonviolent communication. They use the word grieving quite a bit. It's a process of
Yeah.
grieving. That's something
Yeah.
you hoped would work out, didn't work out, something you
Yeah.
hoped would be there for much longer or lead to something else, did not lead to that. And there's
Yeah.
a nice I think Joe Dispenza describes it as grieving is neural pruning. I found that very fascinating.
Interesting.
Neural pruning
Interesting.
means, like, for example, if two people are together, they have built these ideas of what it's like to be together, what it means to be together, what they like about each other, or how they complete each other, or all these other things. There are all these neural connections that have been made, which make you feel close to the person at so many different levels. And now, for whatever reason, the relationship is not going to continue. That's a painful process because it's like just like in the garden when you're pruning, those neural networks have to now break at some level. You have to now see the person in a different way. You can't see them the way you saw them earlier, and that's a painful process. The process of your rewiring of your way of looking at them at a physical level, and of course at every other level, social level and emotional level, and every other level. So yes, it's a highly uncomfortable process, but it doesn't. Everything that's uncomfortable is not automatically bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's the short answer to the spiritual perspective. Is that just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's bad, and just because it's comfortable doesn't mean it's good.
Good. Absolutely. Taking a leaf from what you just said, Nitya, a lot of perspectives say that pain can sometimes be your biggest friend. And just the way you said that heartbreak in a way is a word that one shouldn't like and one shouldn't uh, sort of use to describe the state one is in, because ultimately, even according to a lot of spiritual texts, the idea is to move from heartbreaks to heart openings.
Mhm.
So how do you think pain can be rebranded in a way, if that's something
In
I
fact, you
can
kind of answered
ask?
it because it's like if you have to say heartbreak, you can say my heart broke open. So it's
Absolutely, yeah,
breaking. Like
yeah,
they say that the in order for a seed to sprout, it has to break.
yeah,
And from one perspective, the death of the breaking of a seed is like the death of the seed. It takes
yeah,
the death of the seed for the sprouting of a tree, for the birth of a tree, in other words.
yeah,
I have a friend in New York, and she was telling me about her experience with the first time she gave birth, childbirth. And she said, Nitya, I really tell you that the doctor kept saying push, push, push. And I was thinking, what bloody push? I push one more time, my body's going to break in half. You're saying push,
yeah,
my body was split in half. And so she
yeah,
said she had to take a deep breath And in that pushing, imagine the pain and the fear of that if I push, I'm just going to split into half. So in a way, she had to be willing to die in
Yeah.
order for that birth to happen. She had to be willing to be split into half for that
Yeah.
new birth to happen. So I think this is so
Yeah.
powerful, this way of looking at it, that if you can see it as a necessary part, that in many, many stages in our life, we have to die to that old version of ourselves. We have to die to that kindergarten kid to go to, the beginning of school, and then die to that to middle school, die to that to high school, die to that to college. At every stage in our life, we have to die to something to be born into the new thing. And I think the problems in our society, for example, we don't have any longer this clear sense of what do they call coming of age. There was a coming of age ceremony in every culture. We've kind of lost that. So now you find there is no people are 30s, 40s, but they're still boys actually. Men haven't become men. They're still boys, and girls haven't become women. They're still somewhere. They're still girls. So we're still in that transition. We're not really moving on to the next level yet. So I think what you're describing is a very essential process. We have to allow ourselves. I often say the way out is through. The way out is through. Everything has a crack in it. This is who was that famous singer Leonard Cohen said, everything has a crack in it. That's what lets the light in. So you see it like that, it has a different meaning. It can have a different meaning. Doesn't mean it's easier. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. It's as hard as anything. But it gives it a certain meaning. And when pain has meaning, it is no longer suffering. When pain is meaningless, that is profound suffering. Any pain you give meaning to is bearable.
How beautiful. That really is beautiful. And one of the very recent discoveries in my personal vocabulary has been of the um, growth pains, you know,
Mm.
and I just loved, and I've been using that over and over again. So in a way, I understand what you mean. At the same time, Nithya, while I am completely on the same page as you as far as going through all of this in order for ourselves to be reborn uh, is concerned, I also feel that the process can sometimes be extremely excruciating. The
True.
process can be extremely uh, dulling, and it can be very, so the squeezing that you were talking about in a way
Yeah.
can
Mhm.
really make us feel powerless, make us feel little, make us feel like we have no control over anything. And on multiple levels, that may also be true. But from the perspective of recovery, that's not always something that is very inspiring to bring out the inner strength, if you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying. When we're going through those days where we're having nightmares or we're having extreme grief take over us, or we're not being able to see hope come to us for something to visualize for the future, what do we do in those days that turn out to be the dark night of our soul?
Yeah.
And I'm not limiting this only to the romantic heartbreak, but I'm saying heartbreak from not being accepted to your favorite university, or not qualifying for something that you really wanted to, or your partnership, which you were hoping to be able to come through as a big business deal, is no longer happening. But it can really be crushing at multiple
Yeah.
levels of our consciousness. At that point, is there something we can grasp onto? And how do we make use of that meaningless pain at that point to make it meaningful, you know? So,
Yeah, so I'll narrate a story. Raphael Kushners, author of a
mhm,
book and someone who's I think done a good work of making some of these spiritual concepts more accessible. He shared from his own experience how he got a call from his wife in the middle of the day, saying that can I'm at work but I'm planning to come home early. So he said, "What happened? Are you okay?" She said, "No, no, I have to come home early. Are you home?" He said, "Yes." So she comes home and she looks at him and she says, "I'm in love with someone else, and I don't think I can stop." And he was completely like his wife of so many years suddenly said, "I'm in love with somebody else and I don't think I can stop." It's like a shock to his whole system. He completely blindsided, never expected this. And she's made up her mind. And there's no way of, and you go through all the phases of denial and, anger and blame and projection and everything. And he's in absolute pain. He called up one of his friends who's a Zen practitioner. And he says, I just feel I'm getting slammed. I feel like there's a sledgehammer falling on my heart every minute. I don't even know how to deal with this. What does Zen have to say about this? So he says, you'll not like the answer. He says, well, tell me. He says, Zen says, don't even try to change it. So don't even try to change it. I mean, here I am. I'm in agony. I can't sleep. I can't think straight. I mean, I just feel I've been so badly abandoned and betrayed.
Yeah.
And so he doesn't like his answer at all. But any other answer also doesn't help. So he comes out with this. He comes up with a process which I found very meaningful. It's a 2-question process. And the 2-question process he makes up for himself is, what is happening now? What is happening now? So, for example, right now my mind is racing. Right now my heart is burning. Right now I'm full of stress and anxiety, whatever it is. And the second question is, can I be with it? Can I be with it? And maybe the answer is no, I can't. I hate it. But even that's an answer. It's like, at least you knew that you're choosing not to be with it. So just these 2 questions. What is happening now? Can I be with it? What is happening now? Can I be with it? What is happening now? Can I be with it? And what's happening with these questions is, number one, you're becoming aware of your present reality, even momentarily. You're becoming aware of what it's like physically, mentally, emotionally, all around you. What's it like to be you right now? What's the totality of your experience right now? And can you be with it? Don't try to manipulate it. Like Jeff Foster says, feelings don't want to be fixed. They want to be felt. Feelings don't want to be healed. They want to be held.
Yeah.
So we are always looking for these. Give me a way out. Give me a method. And yeah, there are methods, and maybe I will talk about them. But first, any method that you use as a kind of band-aid is going to fail. First of all.
Yeah.
Like, for example, one method I teach is something called tapping or EFT.
Yeah.
But the very first step of tapping is, even though it's so effed up, I love and accept myself. In other words, even though it's so bad, it's so hard, it's hurting, even though I'm burning, even though I'm angry, even though I'm upset, I deeply and completely accept myself. I love and accept myself. So in other words, you start with acceptance of things the way they are, even though you don't want to. But that has to be, because the acceptance is the same as seeing things clearly the way they are. It doesn't mean you have to stay like that forever, but you see them for what they are. And one last thing I'll say here is Rumi. There's a quote by Rumi that I've always liked. He says, I'm not sure if it's Hafiz or it's Rumi, but one of the two. He says, love is going to burn you. Love is going to burn you, and that's not a problem. The problem is we burn incompletely. The problem is we burn incompletely. So my approach to this is, you have to burn. Don't look for shortcuts. Don't look for the way out. You have to allow yourself to go through that. And the problem is not the burning. The problem is you're flinching. You're not allowing it to happen. If you were to just allow it to happen, you'd be out of it. Emotions actually don't last that long. Any emotion actually can move through you rather quickly. But it's the thought, we go off into the thought, oh, why me? Oh, why did it happen? Oh, what did they do? What did I do? It shouldn't have, they could have, I could have. And you've gone off into a tangent. You're not feeling. You have to feel your way through it. That's the short answer I have to that question. Not so short,
Very
but yeah.
interesting. Yeah, no, very interesting. I think, Nithya, what you said right now is so profound. And talking from my own experience of it as well, I can say that I remember there's this book called The Zahir by Paulo Coelho. And I know he's very famous for having written The Alchemist, and that's the book that everyone reads, etc. But I think the Zahir talks a lot about love as a spiritual force, and there's a lot that he talks about in that. But he says that love is like an untamed force. If you try and control it, it will destroy you. So don't try and control it. Let whatever's happening happen, and you'll find yourself very free. If you're saying that I'm just in a lot of pain and I don't know how to deal with it, but accepting that pain becomes so necessary in evolving out of that experience eventually. And I think what ends up happening for a lot of us is, especially when we start reading, when we start Googling, what is a meditation for recovering from this heartbreak, or how can I do better, or what's my next business plan? We're always wanting to run to the next big thing rather than reflect on what's happened. And then sometimes in the process of reflecting on what's happened, we get into the whole analysis paralysis, and questioning karma and questioning why is pain important and questioning all of these things. Is there something that you want to talk about, Nithya, from the karmic perspective of pain? Because to me, the way I have looked at it, especially in the last 5 years, is that no matter what we experience, at some level, we have chosen to experience it. So for me personally, that radical responsibility, no matter how painful the circumstance is on the face of it, makes me go through it very easily. But that perspective is not something that's always easy for anyone and everyone to adapt to and incorporate in their lives. So, is there something upon, based on the karmic perspective that you might want to mention, or even from again the spiritual perspective that when we're in that questioning phase of what went
Yeah.
wrong, yeah, just throw some light on that, please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, one way we can differentiate a religious perspective versus a spiritual perspective is
Hmm.
religion is wanting some higher being or some force to intervene on our behalf and make it happen the way we want it to. There's a quote
Hmm.
I read on Facebook years back that I found so simple but so powerful. We pray to God to change our circumstances,
Hmm.
not knowing that the circumstances were given to change us.
Yeah.
You think, change it, change it, change it. I'd gone to
Hmm.
Shirdi many years back, and the priest there said, millions of people come here asking for this or that wish, hoping for a miracle. But actually, that's not the real purpose to come here. The real purpose, because if you look at everywhere in Shirdi, Sai Baba's had two teachings. He says Shraddha and Saburi. And Shraddha means have faith, have confidence. And Saburi means have forbearance,
Patient.
have patience. That's the main teaching. Sai Baba is not saying, put some prasad and I'll do a miracle for you. Actually, he never says that.
Yeah.
And miracles do happen, we don't deny it. But actually, that's not the real teaching. Because the priest there said, when miracles happen, that's actually not a blessing. What you've done is you kick the football ahead. You've kicked the football ahead. You haven't dealt with it, actually.
Hmm.
So actually, it's going to come around again, as we all know. If you haven't dealt with it in one job, it comes up in another job. If you haven't dealt with one relationship, it comes up in another relationship. If you just kick the dog shit under the carpet, the smell doesn't go away. It still smells, stinks up the room. So this happens too often in our life. Like you said, there's a kind of a rebound, there's a tendency to go back to old patterns. We haven't learned our lessons from it. So my version, so the spiritual perspective would be that life is not happening to me, it's happening for me.
For me.
It's happening for me, not to me. For what? For my awakening, for my growth. We say, wake up, go up, clean up, show up.
Yeah.
Wake up, which means wake up to the reality, be aware, wake up to what's actually going on instead of your ideas about what's going on. Grow up means emotionally grow up. So often we're stunted, we're caught up in the reaction patterns we've been doing since childhood and watching what other people are doing. We have stunted emotional growth. We're not able to, like, for example, we can't hold space for someone who's criticizing us or who's seeing us in a way that we don't like. That's emotionally stunted. We have to be able to accommodate that. Yeah, people don't always think of us as infallible and perfect. There are gaps and there are shadows within us. And cleanup is, even if you have woken up and grown up, doesn't mean you got it all together. There are plenty of blind spots and gaps in your knowing and your living. So clean that up. And like they say, clean up your wardrobe, clean up your bedroom, clean up your house, get your act together. And then show up. Keep showing up in your life. Because that's the real stuff, is the whole point of all this karmic lesson and everything. You show up, really show up
Yeah.
wherever you go. Wake up from the dream, the self-imposed dream that you've created. The short version to karma is, karma comes from karta, sense of doer. I'm the doer. I'm the doer of these actions. And then the three kinds of action: the tamasic, rajasic, sattvic. Tamasic is heavy, dull, reactive. Rajasic is craving for ambition, wanting to get stuff, being a creator, wanting to make things happen. Being goal oriented is Rajasic. And Sattvic is focusing more on qualities, not the outcomes, but the qualities, the process. That's Sattvic. But the true spirituality is even beyond this. Nirgun. Nirgun is where there's no karma created because there's no sense of doership. If I feel I'm doing a great job with this podcast, that's karma. Then I'm doing a great job. Then if you praise me, your viewers praise me, then I will feel inflated. I'll feel happy. But similarly, then if someone criticizes me and says, no, he doesn't know what he's talking about, then I'll get offended, I'll get angry. But if I'm just showing up as much as I can, and I'm allowing the life in me to respond to the life in you and whatever's showing up in this moment, then there's no sense of ownership. Then there's no sense of residue. So love is asking this of us. Love, maybe in relationships, or like you said, in other projects of our life, to really show up, be wholehearted, to bring all of ourselves to it. And we will fail and we will try again. But to the extent we do that, when these disappointments happen, we'll be able to move through them. We'll see that this is happening for me, not to me. There's a lovely phrase in Latin, amor fati, love your fate, love your fate. This is not fatalism. This is life is happening for me. So man chahi ho to acha, na ho to aur bhi acha. If I get what I want, that's good. If I don't get what I want, that's brilliant. Why is it brilliant? Because I've seen through my life experience that sometimes not getting what I want is the best thing that can happen to me.
How beautiful.
The wisdom that takes us through the ups and downs, the upheavals of our life.
I think again the kind of insights that you have, Nithya, and the synthesis of the wisdom that you possess because of the number of years and perhaps lifetimes even that you may have spent in coming to a point where these things come to you as easy and as light and as understandable and as palatable and as applicable um, is just something that we all must look up to and be inspired by, right? And in some way or the other, it's not just about listening to Nithya and what he's saying, but it's about sort of, in a way, intending to uh, have that part of Nithya's consciousness resonate with our consciousness that has caused Nithya to reach where he's reached. So that aspiration for us to be more stable, more complete, uh, and more playful with life. I think I've always said that as far as Nithya is concerned, one of the most brilliant things about him is just the playfulness. You know, how can we become more playful and uh, still live life with our aspirations and our intentions. But then, how do we not take life as seriously and ensure that we imbibe more and more of that playfulness, Nithya? Because that's where I feel like the biggest issues begin to arise, right? When we're looking at our finances, we're like, oh no, if I don't hit that target by that day, I'm a failure. If I don't have that relationship, which is at that level, I don't think I've made a success of my life. If I don't keep my parents happy in this way, I'm, not good enough. So how can we bring about more lightness, more playfulness? Because in a way, it's only when that lightness and that playfulness that happens to us do we also look at heartbreaks as possible heart openings eventually. Because then we're not as attached to them, we're moving through life, we're flowing through life, etc. So, yeah, playfulness for you, Nithya.
There's this nice quote that bas ek kaam karo, khud ko khali karo. Just do one thing, empty yourself. Bas
Empty
ek
yourself
kaam
of
karo.
yourself.
Empty yourself of your ideas of yourself, your concepts of yourself. I met somehow I'm remembering in Noida, I met this builder. He's one of the major builders in Noida city. And he's built so many luxury apartments and everything. And I was chatting with him and he was saying that there are so many pressures on him from all directions, from the government, from his employees, from customers, from projects, from banks. He has loans to pay. There are so many pressures, and including, he said, unsavory elements. There are pressures from underworld people to make contributions, and there are threats to his life and everything. So I said, how do you manage all these pressures? He said, every morning I wake up and I ask myself, what if this was the last day of my life? What if this was the very last day of my life? And he's like, he believes in God and things. But he says, I just surrender my life to that higher power. And I said, if it's the last day, then use me in the best way possible. So in other words, he's facing his deepest fear. He says, my steady contemplation of death every day gives me the strength to go ahead and do all these things, which many people find inconceivable. And how am I taking such big loans? How am I, building an apartment, luxury apartment in a recession time? Things like this that people don't understand. I'm able to do it because I don't take it that seriously. I just go ahead and do it. So the way I see it is our consciousness. There's the thinking part of our consciousness, which I call conscious mind. Then there's the subconscious, which is the feeling mind, the subconscious mind. And then there's a part of us that just knows. It's like in the Vedas, it is in the Upanishads, it's described as a bird watching another bird. So the bird on the higher branch watching the bird on the lower branch. The bird on the lower branch is busy making a nest and taking care of the kiddos and all the kinds of stuff. The bird above is just watching. We all have this witnessing capacity. It may not be developed, but we have it. A part of us just watches, just witnesses. That's why in meditation we access that part of ourselves. So conscious mind, subconscious mind, superconscious mind. But then there's something beyond that, never mind. So when you touch that never mind, which in this case perhaps this builder to some extent was touching that never mind. So I think that's what happens. That when you have touched that, then you don't take any, even spirituality, you don't take that seriously. Even enlightenment, you don't take that seriously. Even yourself, you don't take that seriously. You make peace with, yeah, whatever's going to happen, you know. And there's a genuine surrender that happens. There's a genuine, there's a beautiful phrase from Shankaracharya. Adi Shankaracharya says, "Prarabdhaya samarpita." Prarabdhaya is whatever has to happen in this life. It's called prarabdha karma. Certain things you cannot change. Already the fact that you were born in a particular way, with a particular height, with a particular skin color, with particular attributes, in a way that's prarabdha. You couldn't control that. You were born a certain way, right? And then certain major things happening in your life. So prarabdhaya samarpitam. So I don't argue with my life. I don't argue with reality. I surrender to that reality. And these words surrender and all from a spiritual people like these words, but non-spiritual people, why should I surrender? Come on, I don't want to surrender to anything.
Exactly.
But what you don't realize is that there is a larger reality. There is a larger potential in you, which is waiting to be unearthed. And it cannot be unearthed as long as you are at war with your own body and mind. As long as you're at war with the way things are, you actually cannot access that. The only way to access that higher dimension is actually being completely okay. It's like I like to say, every atom in the universe is the right place. Every atom in the universe is in the right place. Everything is happening exactly the way it is happening. And in those moments where you can really have that sense that everything is the way it is, including, by the way, I like the way Ramdas said it. He said, everything is perfect, including my desire to improve it. That's also perfect. So this goes, in other words, this goes deeper than, don't just say, oh, how can you say that? There are so many social ills. How can you say that? Or what a ridiculous thing to say. No. Yeah, you have a desire to improve it. So that's also perfect. And you're learning from it. You're struggling. So the totality of it. And there you get access to a different dimension, which is, yeah, you could call it, I think Jiddu Krishnamurti called it total abandonment. Total abandonment, just not having any care. Uh, the mother called it cling to truth, stay with the truth. Choiceless awareness, Krishnamurti also called it. These are all words ultimately, but you do get a taste of something where it's like something and you just unravel. It's not, you don't untangle the knot, you burn the rope. It's like a totally different paradigm. It's like, oh my God, I'm so messed up from childhood, so much has happened to me. How do I fix? Actually, you don't have to untangle anything. The whole idea of who you think you are, you kind of see through that. You see through that. And that doesn't automatically mean you become a perfect person or anything. But deep inside, something has been resolved. And you go through this life in a much more decent way, much more balanced way. And I don't think, by the way, that spirituality is the solution to everything. I think even spiritual people can be really messed up. So I think we will still have projects, whatever degree of understanding I have. I still have my own hangups. And so at a person level, there'll still be hangups. And so one has to deal with that using psychological tools. And maybe, like, I have a therapist I talk to once in a while. And very good that she's able to spot my hangups, which I can't always see for myself, right? So spiritual awareness, which is why sometimes one has to be careful with these kind of discussions, that not to just give spiritual concepts to things like heartbreak, because otherwise we can use ideas like karma and, oh, everything is the way it is, and we can dodge the real work of, like you said, you become tender when your heart breaks. You become weight. It's a real opportunity to look at all the ways that you are fooling yourself, deceiving yourself. Like, I'll give you my own example. When my relationships haven't worked out, I have seen how My so-called positivity, my so-called looking at the bright side, my so-called emphasizing the goodness in the other is actually a problem. I'm not seeing, I'm not seeing the gaps. I'm not seeing how it's not working out. And I'm making them right and me wrong. And that normally sounds like a very good thing, right? See the goodness, see the good in the other, see the best in the other. But actually, I think that's actually a problem. This way of thinking is actually not healthy. It's not balanced. So in those moments, you see all these gaps in yourself. And so in that sense, it's like a software update. And if you take it in the right way, then hopefully you'll be more functional next time round.
Oh, wow. That's a perfect sort of conclusion to what you just said, isn't it? Nithya, one of the things that I am again very conscious about is reminding people about the aspect of forgiveness. And again, I think in a way, playfulness helps us give rise to forgiveness, because again, forgiveness reminds us that there's some part of us which is just holding on to something, and there's a lot of tension around a particular subject or a topic or a theme or a person or a circumstance, and which is why I try my best to be as forgiving, but not only towards others, also towards myself, right? So, talk about forgiveness a little bit. And I understand even from a lot of different lenses, forgiveness works in our favor until, of course, a point where we realize that essentially we're co-creating everything around us and we don't really need forgiveness. Up
Yeah,
until the point we get to that point, how can we use, for example, forgiveness as a tool? And then, of course, I'll come to gratitude later, but more about
yeah,
forgiveness.
very nice. My favorite way of understanding forgiveness is the word forgiveness itself. You break it up. Forgiving, forgiving, forgiving. Thank you for giving this to me. Thank you for giving this. Like I said earlier, life is happening to me. Life is happening for me, not to me.
For me, not to me.
For my growth, for my awakening. This is happening for me. So if I was to say, bring it on, bring it on, bring it on. Man chahi ho to acha, na ho to aur bhi acha. Yeah. So if I get what I want, that's good. If I don't get what I want, that's brilliant. In other words, this is all perfectly designed. Even though, like one of my friends, her house was burning. This is in New York. Her house was burning, and her friends were holding her beautiful old house burning. There was a short circuit in the basement. House was burning. Fire service was trying to put it off, but already it seems like it's too late. And she says, "I can't see it yet. Can't see it yet. But I'm sure there's a blessing in this. Sure, there's a blessing." This is the idea of thank you for giving. Like I can't see anything good that can come out of this. I mean, this is just messing up my whole life. I can't see it yet, but I'm sure there's a blessing. And if you are able to have that much awareness, because I know from my life, what's that? The Guest House by Rumi. He says, even if he be this being human is a guest house, and all kinds of guests arrive, even if they're a crowd of sorrows, welcome them in. Even if they wipe your house clean of all the furniture, crowd of sorrows comes and sweeps your house clean of all the nice furniture. Be thankful. They may be clearing you out for some new delight. They may be clearing you out because sometimes you have to break open, like we said earlier. You have to break open. You have to fail forward
Mm.
in order to really see. So this is the way I see forgiveness. I see, forgiving. Thank you for giving this to me, because I know in my life that sometimes not getting what I want is actually the best thing. I mean, the simple example I give people is the very first relationship you had, which you thought was, so amazing and so cool, and you thought you want to be with that person forever. But usually, the first relationship, in most cases, doesn't work out, and we feel so sad. The first heartbreak is particularly bitter, particularly painful. But now that we look back, we say, "Oh my God, what was I thinking? I'm so glad I'm not with that
Yeah.
person."
Yeah. No,
That's most of
absolutely.
us
That's so
would
true.
kind of agree with that, right? So forgiveness is that sense of this is happening for me, not to me. And I find that is what gives us the maturity. So instead of pointing fingers and said, you did this, you did this, you did this, oh, it happened. Yeah, for various reasons. You were like this, I was like this. Circumstances brought us to this point. And that is, in fact, one lady once wrote to me on Facebook. I didn't know her too well that time. She was just a Facebook friend. And she wrote to me and saying, I found out that my husband's cheating on me. And I'm absolutely angry and I don't even know what to do with this. So I want your advice. And do not tell me to forgive him. All right, do not tell me to forgive him. And in my response to her, I included the fact that don't forgive him. But can you forgive yourself for your inability to forgive him? Can you forgive yourself for your inability to forgive? 2 years later, she came for my retreat and she said, Nithya, those lines are what did it for me. I knew I couldn't forgive him, but I had to forgive myself for my inability to forgive him. And that began the process of the healing. Because ultimately, forgiveness is forgiveness. It doesn't matter directed to him or yourself. It's a process of opening the heart, right? There's a very touching story from the apartheid era of South Africa where they had this reconciliation movement where people were admitting to the harm they had done. This was a big process. Nelson Mandela started it. Father Desmond Tutu was taking care of it. And there was this one case where this police officer came up and he admitted to beating a young black man to death and torturing him to death. And as he's saying this, the mother is sitting in the audience and he admits, I did it. I beat him to death. And you can see he's ashamed of it. He's crying. He's crying. And the mother, nobody expects this. The mother gets up before anybody can stop her. She dodges the police officers and she gets to this police officer, the guy who admitted to this. And people think that she's going to stab him or something. But she goes and hugs him. That was a powerful moment in the history of that country. When a black mother whose son had been tortured and killed by a police officer went and hugged him and said, it's okay. It's okay. This kind of thing shifts the consciousness of an entire country. That's how powerful it is. Nelson Mandela, on his day of becoming president, he wanted 5 seats kept in front as for special guests. Nobody knew who these special guests are. He said, no, 5 special guests. Who are the 5 special guests? The 5 wardens who tormented him for those 30 years while he was a prisoner, 35 years, whatever. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5 special guests of honor. He could, as president, have really messed up their careers after this. He could have gotten back to them big time, right? He's the most powerful man in the country. He calls them as chief guests, as special guests for his becoming president. It's a message to the entire country. If I can forgive these 5 people who have purposely tormented me for all these years, you can forgive your tormentors. So forgiveness is a tremendously powerful healing force, and you don't have to be a saint for it. You just have to rise up. We all have the capacity within us. If you can't rise up, forgive yourself for your inability to forgive. Start there, and then the ball rolls on from there.
Yeah, no, beautiful, Nithya. And again, the stories you gave to contextualize all of this is what makes them even richer, right? Because when we don't have those stories or those analogies, it's very hard to put ourselves in the shoes of another person and sort of understand what does forgiveness really feel like. But the way you do your storytelling is very interesting from the perspective of also helping us connect with a different circumstance, see it from a particular lens that you're presenting it with, and try and see whether we can fit it into our own experience. So that's something that I've really enjoyed. And your book, by the way, Unburdened, has been something that I recommend to so many people. And I remember when it came out, there were 4 or 5 copies that I ordered immediately. I was like, one for me as my traveling copy, one is for me as my desk copy, and I'm sure there'll be enough people who I want to give this to over time, right? And the reason for that is because not only in this book, but generally any talk that I've attended of yours or session or meditation, whatever, it gives me something palpable and tangible to work with, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, I also want to perhaps explore a few tools with you on how we can, apply our intention for healing or recovery and bring it to life, So while admitting to and accepting how important that pain is in the process of our growth and understanding that it is eventually growth pain, with that slightly more optimistic perspective, what are some of the supportive elements or tools that you would recommend? I mean, I know there's an entire series you do on tapping, which I'm gonna, perhaps link along with this video.
Sure.
But anything that you feel works really well. And just to add to your piece on forgiveness, one other thing that I found really interesting and in tandem with forgiveness is gratitude, right?
Gratitude.
So no matter what the situation, forgiveness is only possible if you somehow find the courage to be grateful for something within that circumstance to be grateful for. And once you find that sort of glimmer of gratitude, then forgiveness happens slightly more easily. So,
Yeah.
like you were saying, thank you for giving me. In a way, I think that's my relationship with gratitude
True.
and forgiveness as well. But yeah, coming back to the tools and
Yeah, gratitude
yeah,
is a great tool. It actually takes you
yeah,
through, like, when people write to me saying, I have a surgery coming up, my
yeah,
favorite advice to them is come into a state of gratitude, constant gratitude.
yeah,
Gratitude that you have a doctor, gratitude that you have the resources to access a good doctor, gratitude that you have people around you to support you when you go into the hospital room, gratitude that we have a good hospital, gratitude that we have nurses who are trained, gratitude for, oh, there's anesthetic, wow, I don't have to feel this, I'm so grateful. So like gratitude, 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 and you'll find that your healing journey dramatically accelerates. You're replacing your fear and apprehension with gratitude. Thank you, I'm so thankful, I'm so thankful. What a great way to prime yourself. What a great way to go for it. Your healing will definitely accelerate. And if it works with physical healing, it'll also work with emotional healing. So grateful. I'm so grateful.
absolutely.
There's that famous technique called, excuse me, Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. That's a great mantra for all of us. I'm sorry, please
Yeah,
forgive me. I love you. Thank you. I'm sorry, please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. And you keep saying that over and over again. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And this is, you're right. It is a very powerful. I have a meditation on YouTube. I think it's called Glow of Gratitude, by
mhm,
just going to each body part and thanking each body part individually. So thankful, so grateful. And I mean, we all heard this in a way, but when do we ever do it? If you just actually thank your skin, your bones, your
I
heart, your
agree.
lungs, you're like,
Yeah,
wow, there are so many things. Like I once had this funny thing. I was teaching 200 students, MBA students. And in one of the breaks, one person said, Nithya, I can't continue. I'm going back to my room. I said, what happened? He said, no, I have this pain in my tooth. I said, okay, Sid, I know a few simple healing techniques. Let's see, who knows, it'll help. So I said, before I do any of that, how are your eyes feeling? So my eyes, yeah, my eyes are fine. How are your ears? Ears are fine. How's your neck? Neck's fine. And just took him through his body. How's your right hand, your left hand? And took less than a minute. How's your whole body doing? The body's fine. How's the tooth doing? He says, it's amazing. The pain's gone. We didn't even do
yeah,
anything. We just made him focus on all the parts that are fine. And
yeah,
sometimes it's hurting because we're over focusing on it. We're overemphasizing it. You just broaden your focus. You just see
yeah,
things in perspective. And so right there can be a shift. You start seeing things in a more healing perspective. So let's give you a few tools now around this. One tool is just walking. Walking is a great
mhm,
tool. In fact, walking is better than the leading antidepressant they found.
mm,
And walk, WALK, has the four letters mean something. So W is witness. When you're walking, witness your surroundings, witness nature. Get off your phone, witness, see what's happening, see the people around you, see their faces. Witness, W. A is accept. Witness. Don't react to what you're seeing. Accept it. Witness, accept, love it. Send love out to all the people. Everyone's going through that. You're not the only one going through a heartbreak. Everyone's carrying a hidden burden. Loving wishes to everyone and everything, or at least begin to do that. And K is know thyself, know yourself. In the process of walking, you will know yourself. So one way I break up the walk is in the process, especially when there's something I want to process, then you can actually have four phases to your walk. Suppose you're going for an hour-long walk or even a half an hour walk. You break it up into four parts. The first part is you allow yourself to feel the pain. So whatever, suppose you had a recent, relationship breakup or whatever, you didn't get into the college that you wanted to. So as you're walking, you allow yourself to feel. Fully feeling our feelings is healing. Fully feeling our feelings is very healing. So as you're walking, you feel the pain of that heartbreak. You feel the pain of it, and you keep walking. But don't get lost into thoughts about it. Keep coming back to the pain, the tightness in the chest, the not can't breathe comfortably, and just feeling so bitter inside. All right, feel it. And then the next step is you ask yourself, okay, this is what I don't want, but what do I really
I
want?
really want.
What do I really want? So I want
Yeah,
loving relationship. I want to get into a good college. I want to be contributor. So think of something that you would really want, And your mind will want to go back to that old pain again and again and again. But just you force it to come back to now what you want. Instead of what you don't want, focus on what you do want for the next few minutes. And the third one is feel it like it's already happened. So suppose you did get what you wanted. How would you feel? So now you're actually prying yourself away from what you don't want into what you really want and the feeling of having it now. And the last one is you're just present. You're just walking, you're as present as possible. And you may do this imperfectly. You may not do it perfectly. Maybe it'll be all messed up. But even to try to do this, something gets processed. So maybe when you went on a walk, it was 10 out of 10 pain or 9 out of 10 pain. But when you're back home, now it's 5 out of 10, and now it's 4 out of 10, or maybe even less than that. I had one in one retreat, I taught this healing walk method. And they all had to go for a 1 hour walk every day. Every day, 1 hour walk without any phone, nothing. And they had to process something inside of them. And every day people came back and shared this shifted. One lady said nothing shifted. First day, nothing shifted. Second day, nothing shifted. Third day, she came back. She said, stop, I want to share. What happened? She said, well, I didn't tell you guys, but I'm dealing with a tremendous sense of disappointment in the way I've been treated after my marriage. The in-laws have treated me in a way that is tremendous, layers and layers, years and years of anger. And the first day I went for this walk, nothing happened. Second day I went for the walk, nothing happened. But today, somehow in that walk, something completely shifted. I just saw things from their perspective. I've never seen it from their perspective before. I saw it from their worldview, their expectations, their desires, their hopes, their fears. And I don't agree with what they did, but I understand it. I understand it. And I feel like I've put down 100 kilos and I feel so light. So it's fascinating. Sometimes walking itself is so therapeutic, going for a walk, getting out into nature. In any case, exercising of some kind, even light exercise like walking, and being out in nature, especially sunlight, are some of the best healers. You're getting sunlight on your skin, getting sunlight into your eyes, resetting your circadian rhythm. You're walking, breathing in fresh air, preferably seeing trees and those kinds of things. Tremendous healing happens. So this is one simple tool that I can offer, which everybody can do. Another tool, this is the one that I use quite often. It's got 4 steps to it. And as I'm saying it, if you can write it down, it's quite simple, but if you write it down, you'll remember it. So there are 4 simple steps. First step is, I am, fill in the blanks. I'll just use the word sad to begin with. So I am sad. I am sad. And you can fill in the blanks with I am anxious, or I am, grief stricken, or I'm angry, or you fill in the blank with the emotion you have. But step 1 is I am. I am. Let's just use the word sad. I am sad. And as you say that, I'm sad, I'm sad, I'm sad, you'll feel, what does it feel like? I'm sad. It feels a certain way. That way of saying it, I am sad, does something to you. Now, second one is very interesting. It's a slight shift. You say, instead of saying I am sad, you say I feel sad. Oh, that's actually closer to the reality. I am is an identity. I feel is something that's temporarily happening in this moment. Yeah, right now I feel sad. I felt many things in my life. I felt happiness, I felt excitement. Right now I'm feeling sad. So this is a shift from identity to actuality. Right there's a shift. So for a few minutes, you say, I feel sad. I feel sad. And like I said earlier, fully feeling our feelings is very healing. Your emotions and feelings want to be felt, not to be fixed. The short answer to your question about heartbreak is we're not feeling it. We're getting into our mental chatter. We're getting into our self-image. If you were to move from self-image to self-awareness, it would not last so long. So the first one is I am sad, or fill in the blank. Second one is I feel sad, or fill in the blanks. Third one is very interesting. I'm aware that I'm feeling sad. This is very beautiful. It's like, oh, I'm feeling it, but I'm not this feeling. There is a feeling. So it's like you're coming to awareness, like you're waking up. It's like a new leaf open, a new chapter open, a new dimension open. I'm aware that I'm feeling sad. I'm aware that there is sadness. I'm feeling sad. So I am sad. I'm feeling sad. I am sad. I feel sad. I'm aware that I feel sad. The next one is sadness is welcome. Sadness is welcome. Because as we all know, what you resist will persist. What you resist will persist. It's not actually, any experience is not a problem. It's your resistance to the experience that's the problem. Somebody asked Ajay Devgan, who does his own stunts in movies, that you've often said that you have a fear of heights. So how do you do your own stunts? He says, yes, I have a fear of heights, but I don't have a fear of fear. I have trained myself to not be afraid of being afraid. Now, I don't know
How
if that's just a
beautiful.
nice PR
Yeah,
statement, but I thought it's a great,
yeah,
what a great statement,
yeah,
right? That I'm not afraid of being afraid. I love that. Not afraid of being afraid.
yeah,
They say courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. It's not having no fear. Courage is feeling the fear. You would be foolish to not have fear. If you're a soldier, you'd be foolish to not be afraid. Of course, you should be afraid. If you're on the SWAT team, if you're going to do something, you should be afraid. It's a real danger. If you're not afraid, you're not sharp enough. You got to be afraid. But you do it anyway. You do what needs to be done. You feel the fear and do it anyway. So these are four statements, which I find just taking yourself through these four statements. I am, fill in the blank. I feel, fill in the blanks. I am aware, I feel, fill in the blanks. This fill in the blanks is welcome. Fill in the blanks is welcome. And in this radical welcoming, like you said earlier, radical acceptance, radical welcoming, there's a kind of alchemy that happens. There's a kind of transformation that can happen. And something dissolves in us deep inside. One more tool is just breathing. Breathing is so powerful. Just breathing with it. Breathe deeper if you have to. Just keep breathing, keep breathing. Wim Hof, this person who made the
yeah,
Wim Hof technique popular, his story is that his wife was depressed and committed suicide. And he was so deeply heartbroken that his beloved wife committed suicide. Nothing worked. I don't think our podcast would have helped him either. Nothing would have. He was so depressed. He was so angry. He was so sad. And he said the only thing that helped him was he lived in those cold regions of Europe. Ice cold baths, like getting into ice cold lakes and rivers. He would get into that, and the shock to his system of just how cold it was, that was the only respite he got from the agony of his mind. And he found that when he got into those kind of cold lakes and cold rivers, the body automatically began breathing a certain way.
mm,
Automatically began breathing a certain way, right? And out of that, he created this technique called the Wim Hof method, which is based on deep breathing. And it's a very simple method. You can go to YouTube and find it, learn the method very simply. It's just breathing deeply for about 30, 40 breaths and holding your breath for as long as you can. And you do 3 or 4 rounds of that. And it's like your whole body is woken up. You've oxygenated your whole body. And so whether you do that method or you just come back to your breath, breathe through it. The main thing, what are the main thing taught to pregnant women? Breathe, breathe, breathe. Come
mm,
on, breathe and push, breathe and push. So you have to just breathe and let this thing push itself out of you, come out of this on the other side. So yeah, there is no clean answer to this. Even though I've given you a few
yeah,
techniques, don't expect that it'll make it a cakewalk, because like I said, love is going to burn, and that's not a
yeah,
problem. The
yeah,
problem is we flinch, we don't burn completely. This
yeah,
heartbreak you're going through is happening for you, not to you. It's something in you that's actually going to die, and
yeah,
that's not a bad thing. Something in you needs to die. Some old ideas of who you are, what love is, what romance is, how things should be, how things could be. Uh, Neural pruning. Something has to die. Something has to be cut off, and
yeah,
that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's clearing you out for some new delights. Maybe,
yeah.
right? That's the attitude.
Well, I think that's the perfect way to sort of bring closure to this wonderful session with you, Nithya, because I believe that too, that no matter how much we feel like we're dying, in a way, we are still going to be born anew. And I think, interestingly, if there's anybody who begins to embrace concepts of spirituality or even the soul, the first thing you embrace is the inherent immortality that we are presented with. So, I mean, I think for me, one of the funniest things was that, okay, you know what? How long can I possibly allow for this to affect me and wallow in self pity? Because ultimately, I'm immortal and I'm going to have to get out of this at some point. So, what can I make? How can I make the most of this situation? And let's move through it and let's move beyond it. And yeah, so I love
Can
the
I can I give one
conclusion.
more
Yeah,
cheeky?
yeah,
Can I
yeah.
give one more cheeky tool? This
Yes,
is
please. I love cheeky tools.
this is when none of these spiritual things work, then this one might work for someone. Which is, and I learned this from an ex-girlfriend of mine. So she told me that when she goes through a breakup, she sits down and makes a list.
Yeah.
All the things she doesn't like about the person, even small little
Yeah.
niggly things, right?
Yeah.
The small
Yeah.
little niggly thing that they dig their nose, or they snore at night,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
they have bad breath, or small thing that she cuts me off when I speak.
Yeah.
She makes a list of all the things that she doesn't like about the person,
Mhm.
and literally goes through and mentally kind of meditates on that list. Because why are we in so much pain? Because oh my God, I've lost something so amazing. I've lost something so amazing. I've lost something so cool. That's why we're in pain. Because we're focusing on all the good things and the fact that we've lost them.
Mhm.
And this, of course, I would say don't do it when truly there's been a heartbreak, the relationship is ended, it's all over, and now you're kind of recovering. Then actually, this is actually a very interesting method. You actually think of all the things you didn't like about the person, and you literally meditate on them. Why? Not because the person's bad, it balances your perception because you are focusing on all their great, amazing qualities. And for a short while, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, focus exclusively on their not so good qualities. And something rearranges itself in you. So this is like a cheeky tool. I'm not sure it's necessarily a spiritual tool, but it seems to have something to it. And it balances our perception. The Buddha actually says that the fivefold mastery of perception, to see the unpleasant as pleasant, to see the pleasant as unpleasant, to see the unpleasant as unpleasant, to see the pleasant as pleasant, and the ability to silence your perceptions, just be silent and still and quiet and thoughtless. Fivefold mastery of perception. So in this way, this is perhaps one of the ways where you're seeing what is pleasant as unpleasant. The reason you're hurting so much is you're only seeing how good it was, how good it was, how good. And now you see actually it wasn't so good in some ways. And that balances your perception. When your perception is balanced, you're okay. The neural pruning has happened. You're in a much more balanced equanimous state.
Very interesting. I think that last one was equally powerful, even if you call it cheeky. I think it was definitely powerful. I think when we're in that space, anything that can help us get out of it is beneficial. So definitely, I'm sure there'll be someone who'll benefit from that last one. So good. No, thank you very much, Nithya. Thank you for taking us through this entire session and, just sharing your anecdotes and your stories and analogies. I'm sure they're going to be very beneficial and valuable for a lot of people. And the course that I'm doing on magnifying the energy of love, I think my only intention for it was these entrapments and this extreme fear that we're finding ourselves in, blocking that energy of the free flow of love. How can we diminish the intensity of those trappings and reconnect with the love? Because once we end up reconnecting with the purity of that love in itself, the rest of the tools and techniques and resources uh, sort of show up, right? Like when you become resourceful, the resources show up. I think that's something I heard from you as well. So yeah, my intention is that we move into more of a space of love, and we find that there's that pure, persistent center within us, which is still holding everything together, guiding us and taking us forward into the light, into the light, into the light. Thank you.
So nice.